Let's go.
Our next panel, in which we're going to talk about multifamily. Disruption is happening in multifamily. That is the title of our next panel discussion. And according to the National Multifamily Housing Council, 36% of U.S. residents live in multifamily housing. It's a huge chunk of the population. It spans the spectrum of age and income demographics, and new technologies are reshaping every facet of the industry, from maintenance to resident retention. Our next moderator knows a thing or two about these changes. He's a successful real estate investor and the CEO of Multifamily Leadership, where he works to prepare multifamily stakeholders for the future of technology, innovation, and leadership. I'm going to bring up the entire panel, so please welcome Patrick Antrim, our moderator, along with our panelists, Kerry Kirby and Darren Williams.
All right, there we go. Good morning. I think you guys might be muted. All right, so again, my name is Patrick Antrim. I'm the founder and CEO of Multifamily Leadership. Part of what we do is we go to events like this to try and get inspired and bring back innovation to an industry that you've heard earlier is somewhat conservative, and there's reasons for that. Those reasons can be that they're cashing $1 million checks, and success can oftentimes be really a setback to, do we really want to take on a risk? Do we really need to think differently? And so we look at those things, bring those technologies back to our industry. To my right here, I have Carrie Kirby. He's the founder and CEO of 365 Connect. It's an innovative platform that he's designed to power the resident lifecycle. So technologies to end-to-end the leasing journey when someone learns about a property to the move-in and the leasing journey. To his right is Darren Williams. He's the president of Portico Property Management, and I thought together they can bring some really wonderful conversations around what's happening now in multifamily and where we're going. So Darren, what I'd like to start off with is how do you look at your properties? You take on a portfolio. What are all the things that have to come together for you to run a deal?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. This mic is dented, so I think actually somebody did drop the mic up here. I think that's more, you're not actually supposed to do that. It's more a metaphor. So I was surprised when I was invited to this because multifamily might be the most antiquated industry in the world. I'm sure there's one out there, maybe quarry digging or something. But when I got into the industry, I was struck by how antiquated it was. I mean, literally 10 years ago, the majority of apartments in the nation and world, the pricing was set weekly by a leasing consultant who makes $14 an hour calling around every Monday and saying, hey, what are you guys selling a one-bedroom for? And then we'd set our pricing. I mean, can you imagine that? Like, that would be like the Gap calling on Monday and saying, what are you guys doing t-shirts for today? It just really was antiquated. And so technology has been a huge disruptor, obviously, in every industry. But I think in ours, we're just kind of on the long tail of that. So I can't even count to you how many softwares out there are being peddled right now to solve problems, which is really, really exciting, and we've talked about that. But I mean, we've got our property software, we've got ILSs and advertising that are feeding in there. And I know Carrie's going to talk about this next. We've got reputation software that's chatting with folks that are upset and how are we posting that, social media tracking. It's all exciting, and I think in a vacuum, each one of those is fascinating and helpful and necessary. But we have many challenges with that too. No surprise, I'm sure you guys all have challenges with technology. One, they all have to talk to each other and connect, and you have to have these separate vendors saying, okay, what's the solution look like? And I know Carrie's going to talk a little about that. The second one is, and I know we'll talk about that at the end, when do we have the bandwidth to train this and to truly roll it out in a positive manner? And we're trying to catch up. We're way behind. We are catching up, but there's still just these general, I would say, challenges with how quickly we can do that.
Yeah, so Carrie, let's talk a little bit about these technologies, because I think, like Darren noted, a lot of times operators do want to look forward. They do want to get excited about things, but at the same time, it is difficult to enter the marketplace based off integrations and these types of things. So what are the challenges when these technologies are talking to each other?
little switch there.
All right, can you hear me now?
You're on.
So we've been doing this. We started 16 years ago, so we're probably the older technology company in the room. And it has come up a long way. But the biggest challenges are integrating systems. There's a lot of legacy systems out there, especially the property management systems are, there's two dominant players in the market. So integrating all the systems and getting them to talk are extremely difficult. Pricing and availability is certainly the biggest thing, as Darren said, being able to bring that inventory to life, bring it online. Lease term pricing is big, revenue optimization, and bringing all those things to the forefront. But I think the biggest challenge, especially for new companies coming into the market, is being able to integrate with some of the legacy systems, because the property management companies, as Darren pointed out, and I'm sure he's going to get into it a little deeper, how many of these different systems can you go into? They're looking for a integrated solution. They want their managers to live in preferably one dashboard, maybe two, depending on what it is, and be able to integrate all this data. I want all my leads pushed back into my property management system. I want you to pull out pricing and availability. If you're doing payments, I want them posted back in my ledgers. So there's a lot of complexities to making all these talk, and then you have new things like reputation management, social media, and bringing those into a single ecosystem as well.
Yeah, and so oftentimes when you put deals together, these acquisitions have exit strategies before they go in. It's like getting married with an exit strategy. You can't think long term like that. And so, Darren, when you go to an owner and you're a third-party property manager, and you have a long-term vision about where the trends are going and where the customer of tomorrow is going, how do you sell that to somebody that has a short-term goal?
That's a good question. I was hoping you would tell me, because I usually just say, this is how much money we need, and they say, never mind. So it's a good question. I think, I'll be honest, we almost have the opposite problem as much. So we'll have an owner that calls us and says, hey, what are you doing with Instagram? We need an Instagram account for the property. And I'm like, okay, great. What would you like? We always start with the end. What do you want to accomplish with the Instagram? What is our goal? Well, I don't know, but my 15-year-old said this is hot and we need one. Awesome. Okay, well, we can certainly roll that out. But again, let's start with, what do we want to accomplish with it? Are we trying? Is it just we want one so that your 15-year-old's happy? Which I get it. I mean, I was on YouTube one time. My son thinks I'm a rock star, so I get it. Or is this because you want to build a community and you want the folks to start connecting? I think it was Chris at Ollie who said there's this kind of connectivity maybe. And so is that our goal? Is our goal to try to drive leasing? Are we going to advertise on it? I mean, these are the questions. And a lot of times they're like, I don't know, just get Instagram. So I think there is a challenge with trying to sell them on technology, but we also have the other issue, which is, here's technology, I want you to use it. Why? Right? Because I don't want to use technology unless we have a clear plan of what it's going to accomplish, how we're going to track that, how we're going to roll it out.
So, Carrie, Darren talked earlier about having on-site employees influenced by their circle of influence, their radius, right? Whereas we know people are linear now in terms of where they would drive and commute to cars or commute to properties. When you have a technology platform that you know really contributes to the improvement of the life cycle of the resident journey, the resident experience, and you deploy a technology to a team of multifamily professionals, what are the challenges you have with the teams in terms of getting them to actually use the stuff, right? Getting them to adopt it, especially when you're back into the turnover. Dealing with a new employee that you're now onboarding. Is it exhaustive to maintain that process?
It is, and we probably have some similar problems that Darren has, because everybody's pops up and they have an idea. Property managers, so we've been out there a while. Our company has grown nationally, so you can imagine the feedback loop's huge now. So 365 runs in almost 1 million units today. So we get a lot of information, and a lot of requests, Instagram, and things sometimes that do not quite make sense. But the buy-in, as you were saying back at the property management level, is important, because at the end of the day, they're on the ground using everything. And what we found is the more automated we can make this, the more we can take them out of the system and just let it do its thing, the higher success rate that we have. So we've been probably one of the most independent, integrated platforms out there with all the top property management softwares, as well as a ton of other things that are new and innovative in the market, including social media. So if you can kind of pull them out of that, the workload from it, you get a higher success rate.
Yeah, we heard earlier today about the risk to the cloud and data breaches and these types of things. And when you're bolting these technologies on, and maybe one of property managers have an idea, they go to a web demo, they introduce a new product, and how that product integrates. What are the risks associated with understanding, for the protection of a portfolio like Darren's, with where's the data, who owns the data, where's it going? And because at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, the property is who they're going to contact, right? They're not going to talk to, the three tech, forms that were embedded with the other technologies. How does that work?
Yeah, so some of the challenges, of course, are security. I think we're all cloud hosted today, but that doesn't mean somebody can get in. So where's the vulnerability? I don't know, the manager gives somebody their password to their system and they get in, and there's applications and social security numbers in there. And there's a huge compliance movement moving out there too. We're going to see California's going to got a new privacy policy act that they've adopted on their own, starting in 2020. We've got ADA issues in the digital world now. Digital accessibility is huge. And there's a lot of litigation up under that right now to bring ADA online. I mean, it is happening. There's stuff out there. So there's a lot of complexity that goes on in a given day with Darren and them just running their property. But like you say, they're the line, and somebody's going to look at them and say, well, this happened here. And then you got to go kind of down the loop, especially with all these integrated systems, because data's moving everywhere.
Yeah, and we heard earlier in the panel about 400, I think it was 400 meetings, we forgot the yes. Darren, how many meetings can you have with new innovations? And you often say no, or do you say yes?
I mean, that's a full-time job if I let it be. I mean, there's no doubt if you network and you're out there, which you should be, that's how you learn. I mean, events like this is how you learn what other people are doing well. And I'm a champion idea stealer. So if you have a good idea, I'm going to steal it, and I may give you credit. So I love these events, but of course that's going to follow up with, hey, we have 10 new ideas we want to sell you. I try to take every meeting or call, but I'm also very candid about what we can do. So when you think about it, if you have a quick show of hands, who lives in an apartment? That's a big number. And so I think two things with apartments. First and foremost, it's still a people-intensive business. Now that's going to change probably. I could see it maybe, as AI starts to come around. And I know there's a session on that a little later, which I'm intrigued by. But as that comes around, maybe leasing starts happening that way. Maybe there's more chatbots. I don't know. But right now, it's people-intensive. So if we have a 250-unit property here in Atlanta, that's 3 people in the office. And that means with 2 days off, about 3 to 4 days a week, there's only 1 person in the office. And they've, their bandwidth, this is how I like to think of it, because they're the front line, as you said. Their bandwidth, 80% of it is full every day. They've got residents coming in, they've got to give out packages. There's a few solutions that are fixing that. That's been actually one of the ones I want to highlight. It's been very helpful. But they've got residents and packages and maintenance requests and leasing. Really 80% of their day is packed. I mean, so when I think about that, anytime we look at a new technology that we want to roll out, we have to be purposeful, we have to be slow, we have to pilot it, we have to do it correctly, and we can probably only roll out 2, maybe 3 things a year. That's it. And so guys, we're a pretty new company. We've been around 8 years. I guess in tech world, we're medium size or medium length. So when somebody comes and says, hey, I have this great idea, even if I love it, even if I say, oh my God, I love that, the answer may be we're 3 years away from that. Because once to really spend the time, and that if the end user only has 20% of their bandwidth, I have to be very purposeful about what we can roll out. How do we train it? How do we test it? How do we do it correctly? And if we try to roll 10 things out, then we just do a shitty job on all 10. And by December, when we've rolled out the 10th one, we go back and look at the first one we rolled out in February, they've forgotten it. So I find a lot of people that I love their idea, and I say, man, I wish we were at a spot we could do that. We're not. And we may be 3 years away. Is that frustrating? Guys, it's incredibly frustrating. I wish I had a magic wand. I could just make things go faster. It's not how life works. And so to me, that's our major obstacle number one. Now, the thing is, I used to cry about this, and a good friend of mine finally said, dude, you're not the only industry in the world that has this issue. Restaurants have this issue. I mean, Chick-fil-A, they can't just roll out new technology all the time. They've also got high turnover. That's our concern. Even if I nail the rollout, I roll it out perfectly, everybody learned the new technology, we're great. The average industry turnover right now in our industry is 39%. So next year, almost half my people need to be trained on that again. And so those are the challenges we face. Again, not just ours. I mean, somehow Chick-fil-A nails it, and they're working with high school students that make even less than we pay. So there's a way to do it, but you cannot commit to too much. So don't be offended if I ever say, I love your idea. We're not close. And call me in 2021, and I mean it. We're rolling Knockout, which is a CRM, this quarter. We've already piloted it at 2 properties. We've kind of tested it to our edification. October, we will roll it out slowly in phases by region. We'll test it. We'll have retraining. We'll train, and then we'll come back a month later and go, how's it working? And really, it'll be fully rolled out by January. So that's 4 months. If you cast pilot stage, that was 6 months. I think that's the right way to do it. I don't believe in plug and play. The easiest way to lose my business is say, you don't have to do anything. It's all plug and play. We show up and train it, and it's good. Well, I don't believe you. That's not how technology works. So to me, that's the challenge. I love technology a lot. I was always the geek on Reddit with the new iPhone, but I know I can only roll out so many things over the course of a year.
Yeah, thank you. So historically, we've recognized and rewarded, obviously, executives and financial firms on growth and scale and how many units they own, and it's been almost a badge of honor that I have 100,000 units, 200,000 units, 300,000 units. And so what we know about the customer tomorrow is that they care about more than how profitable you are or how much stuff you own. And so those companies that are creating those healthy organizations, in fact, Darren, one of the list makers for the best places to work, it's those companies that are creating healthy organizations that go beyond just profits. So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing differently on scale, because I'm sure these technology companies are coming in and trying to get people to that scale. Is that your ultimate goal?
It's not mine. I understand why it would be somebody else's, but it's not mine. I think if we're a people-intensive business, you saw the show of hands. That was a lot of apartment dwellers. And so to me, and I shop a lot of properties, our owners will ask us, so I probably shop, 30, 40 property communities a year. I always come away mostly unimpressed. And so this is the other opposite to technology. As much as I love it, much as I want to adopt it, if your people are friendly and they stand up and they greet people when they come in the door, and your property's clean and inviting, and your service request gets fixed quickly, and they communicate well, and they follow up, if you just do those basic things, which are business 101, I believe in the apartment industry, you're in the 90th percentile. That sounds sad, and it is. But that's the truth. And so if that's the case, how much time do we spend on the shiny new thing that's coming out when we really should just get the basics right? So that's kind of issue number one. And to scale, this is naive, but again, it's business 101. Our friend from the Great American Cookie Company said this. To me, it's the customer experience. We have to have good customer service. And I think when I didn't grow up in this industry, I was actually at Accenture, and I hopped around as a consultant and went to a lot of different places. So by the time I got here, and I also had a hospitality background, the first disconnect to me was there wasn't great customer service. It was, you were a resident, and the eye roll was right there when I would talk to our folks. The resident is a pain in the ass. They come in and their garbage disposal doesn't work, or their mail got lost. And it took the industry had to get turned on its head. They're not a pain in the ass, they're our client. and they're our customer. And guess what, guys? They're making the most intimate decision they'll make all year, and the most expensive one. I mean, if our rents are $1,500, I mean, they're making an $18,000 decision. They're living with us, building a community, falling in love, raising kids. This is a big deal. And the customer service wasn't where it needed to be for that. At a hotel, we bend over backwards. They're there for a weekend. At apartments, we kind of looked at them like they were the problem and not our customer. And so our core is we don't want to get real big. We just want to, this is very naive, but if we have really great customer service and our residents are happy and our associates are happy, then the profit will follow and the growth will follow. And I know I can already feel the eye rolls on that, but I believe it's true. I mean, if we focus there, then the owner's happy. And we can measure that in better ways than we ever have before. We can tell. We have associate engagement scores and we have resident satisfaction scores. And guys, every time, to me, that's a predictive number. It's the one number I can look at, and if that dips, I know there's trouble on the horizon, and it's time to dig in and understand why.
That's really interesting. Our brand focuses on innovation, but we step away from the tech conversation and really look at what's that collision that happens between technology and innovation. So if our goal is to spark innovation and bring some of these exciting things into the industry, what are some of those challenges, Kerry, in technology and getting these integrations or introducing a product?
Well, basically our audiences are limited, right? So we're in a very defined market, a very defined, buyer, and the buyers range large depending on the size of the organization. It can be, Darren himself. It can be a regional manager, a marketing manager, a property manager, depending on what size organization you're in. And the industry has trade shows, and you can go to those, but what I learned is 80% of the market, 80% of those owners are smaller owners. They're usually not there. So it's reaching that audience, and I call it coming first of mind, being there, them knowing your name and your logo when they're looking for something to come to you, because you can burn a lot of cash chasing business.
Right. What about technology specifically? I've got a great new solution. How do I get it to Darren, into his platform, into his dashboards? How do I get those things into the industry?
The biggest thing we hear, which Darren is a customer of ours, which Darren will tell you is they want an integrated solution. So they want an integrated system. The challenge is a lot of the startups gaining the integrations are very difficult. I was talking to a company in the space a week ago, and they're basically shunned by some of the larger systems that they need to integrate with. Don't want to talk to them. If they do, they want sizable money to tap into their APIs. So I think that's the biggest challenge is integrations in the industry.
That's been a big roadblock, hasn't it? I mean, for those of you that don't know the apartment industry, there's really two platforms for software, Yardi and RealPage. I'd say that's 80%. I mean, maybe more.
86.
86. The guy knows. He's been counting. And so, yeah, if there's any group out there that wants our business and we like them, but they don't integrate, so the info is not going to go in there and we have to double entry or anything, it's a huge problem. And so they really are the gatekeepers. Eventually, I think you've seen this, if enough clients rattle the saber and say, hey, I really like this, you need to figure it out. A lot of times they'll do it, but it is a challenge.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and it's a very lengthy process, and they can slow it down to the effect where, well, this isn't going to work, and you lose interest.
Because you're also competition. I mean, RealPage has 87 different, I think, product types.
Correct.
So if they let you integrate, they're really competing with you as well, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
in a sense, and what they're doing now is charging for APIs so they can capture some revenue off of it.
Sure.
How much is it for a Google API?
How much is it for a Google API? They're free and open.
So, okay, where do you see the opportunities then in terms for the industry and in terms of the category design of it? Where, if we could create the future and spark innovation, how do you see data playing out in terms of an open system?
I think companies like Darren, the end user needs to control their data. I think they should have who they want to give data to. Like, I don't talk to anybody at Google if I want to use a Google Maps API. Will they charge me if I hit their server too much? They'll charge me money, which they should. But I think at the end of the road, the property management companies eventually need to control their own data, their own integrations, and flip on or off who they want to have information.
The good news is the customer's demanding some of those elements today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's moving it.
Darren, what do you see as next?
I mean, again, I'm probably the least qualified to talk on that in this room. So even though as I like to be a technology geek, I'm in a very still antiquated industry. I will say, this maybe is not answering exactly their question, but the ones that have resonated, the groups out there, one of my passions about technology and what I love about it is it can solve a problem. And that's really exciting. And I think that's where any company that's approaching, here's a problem and I want to solve it, and then comes up with a really clean and elegant way to solve that, that's an easy sell, guys. I mean, I talked about package lockers. This was something that packages are an enormous problem in an apartment. The postal service doesn't want to deliver them all and go into stairwells and do that. So they just say, I'm going to dump them at the office. And more people are using Amazon. So a 250 unit community, do you have any idea how many boxes we deal with a day? I mean, that's like a full-time job. And so somebody finally said, hey, we're going to solve this problem for you. We're going to put lockers out there. And they can access them, and then we'll text them when they have one, and we're going to track it for you. There's a little bit of training, like you guys are going to have to know how to do it, but it's going to solve this problem and give you back this much time. Guys, that's an easy sell. And now there's 3 or 4 doing that, fine. But that was technology that really solved a problem. It was such an that was easy to get on my calendar. Yeah, Darren, I know you can't roll out a lot of things, but I'm about to give you 10 hours a week back. Wow, okay, multiply that by the 34 properties we have. That's real money, it's real time, it's real investment. So I think one of the things I love about our industry is there are a lot of problems still to solve. And so I see some really smart people trying to solve those. I think the industry will keep moving that way. And then ultimately, I think there's going to be a tipping point with, do we need folks in the office, right? I mean, how many of you have gone into your bank branch in the last 2 months? You don't go anymore. There's that poor guy. He needed a money order. Yeah, you don't do it anymore. I'm with USAA. They don't even have branches, and they have great customer service. So the thing we're challenged with is, do you need to be face-to-face to give good customer service? I think the answer is no. And so what does the future look like? Sometimes I think we're barely going to, once you lease, if everything can be done online, you won't even go into the office. Then, this last panel did a nice job illuminating, guys, we still have tons of traffic. It might be the loneliness factor. Maybe they just want to come get coffee on their way to work and shoot the shit. I don't know. But I will tell you, I mean, guys, we still have computer centers in our, and I was like, those should be gone 10 years. Everybody has a smartphone. Your smartphone's better than the computer we put in there. But there's still people sitting there. And finally, the light bulb is, I think they just want to. I think they just want to get out of their apartment and be around people. So I'll be honest, I'm on the fence. Maybe it goes the way of banks and nobody comes in the office. Maybe it goes entirely the other way, and because more people are working from home and more people are, there's more online, maybe they just need personal interaction, and in apartments where you do that. So I'll be honest, I don't have that answer. I was hoping you guys would give it to me. That's why I came here, and I've got another, 14 hours to figure it out.
Very good. Daily inspiration, almost like Starbucks. All right, so I think we're at the end of our session. So thank you very much